What's going on, people? In today's video, what are we doing? And what are we talking about? Today finally, I have a hardware demo for you guys. And it's been a long time coming for this one. I've been picking at it off and on. Finally got it to a point where I can show and demo this development kit to you guys. So, as you guys know, I'm all N64. So today we have yet again a piece of N64 development hardware. Now, before we dive into it, I want to quickly show you guys something super cool, just because it's awesome and it's something that I've been wanting to show you, but I'm actually sending this to the owner very shortly, and I wanted to just show it to you guys briefly here on today's video. So you guys do remember when I was showing you guys the RARE Limited proprietary development cartridge not too long ago. I was showing you guys that, and here it is here. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's a couple of accessory components that go with this development cartridge. One of them is these little DE9 dongles. So these are small little connectors. They have that DE connector on the front there. And it's just a closed little enclosure. Now, what's cool about it is that these little dongles have a small internal circuit board in there with one of the CIC security chips for N64 cartridges. And so these little dongles here actually connect to the front of the cartridge here. You'll notice that there's a DE9 socket, and these little adapters just plug in there and mate to the board. And then what happens is that interfaces different CIC chips very quickly and easily. The developers could exchange instead of having to be very, delicate and having to remove those CIC chips from the dip sockets on the boards. And so again, this just allowed developers to just quickly swap out the CIC chips when they were testing between regions. So you had certain CIC chips for North America and as well for PAL. And so developers could just quickly pop them out and pop them back in and do some quick testing. So that was pretty cool. And they're pretty rare to find these. If you get, sometimes they'll have these cartridges for sale on eBay, or a collector might have them, but these little dongles with the CIC chips in them, they're pretty rare. So that's really cool, the fact that I got one of those, and I was just reversing the little pinout on it and sending it back to my buddy. And so now the second little piece of equipment, which again goes with this RARE Limited development cartridge, are these small little flash. It's a proprietary board, and it's designed by RARE. And as you can see, it has a small little MX flash chip on there. When I interviewed Mark Green, he mentioned that these cartridges were specifically for save games. So my buddy Andrew actually recently mentioned, he said, "Hey Gerry, wouldn't it be cool if you dumped the flash chip that was on these little flash boards, and you could get access to some prototype save game data?" So it'd be kind of cool to get, some prototype data from, what a developer was using to test. Most likely it would be some type of game save data for, a game that was under development. So it would just be cool to see if there'd be a way for us to identify what type of save game data was on here. So that's a pretty cool idea. And that'll be something that I'm going to be doing very, very soon. And I'll be sending these back to my buddy Andrew. So pretty cool idea. You guys know I'm all about N64. That is my go-to system. And so today I've got yet another ultra rare piece of development equipment that I'm going to be showing you guys. So the piece of hardware that we're looking at today is the N64 SoundTools Development Cartridge. So the cartridge itself is pretty straightforward. It has a parallel interface port on the back side, which connects to a printer port on a PC workstation. Developers would be running Windows 95 or Windows 98, and they would install a piece of software that came with the cartridge known as the N64 SoundTools software. The software was actually quite sophisticated. It had a lot of different menus and different options that gave developers real control over the sounds and the music tracks that they were working with. You could also import MIDI as well as import different sound samples into the software, and it would allow developers to go in and control many different aspects of the sounds, as well as frequencies and envelopes. Developers had the option of composing their music and sound effects right in the SoundTools software. However, importing MIDI data and MIDI tracks was also a possibility with this software. And so developers could use their own external MIDI development equipment and software packages and then import that into the SoundTools software and then refine all of the samples that were being used and allowing that to speed up development. Now, to be honest, the software is kind of finicky and there's a lot of loading time required for when you need to actually test and sample the sounds coming through the N64 console. To preview some of the samples or the tracks that you were working on was actually not a very speedy process, as every time that you wanted to play and listen to a track, you had to wait for the N64 driver to be loaded into the hardware of the parallel ROM pack, as well as uploading the sample audio data. So it was a little finicky. It's not exactly a very quick and speedy process for testing. Now, I discovered that you can actually use the version 3 software with the version 1 cartridges. You simply have to go into the software menus and tweak some of the I/O transfer rates and adding a delay in there, and then the software is able to function properly with the version 1 hardware. What a lot of people didn't realize is that the SoundTools cartridge displays a set of peak meters on the television. When you're previewing the sounds, you'll see those peak meters rise and fall depending on the sound frequencies that are being sent through to the N64 console. So it's pretty cool, and I don't think a lot of people realize that that's what was actually being displayed here, because in order for that to occur, you have to actually have the SoundTools cartridge running through the console and hooked up to the software. Now, a lot of collectors would acquire these cartridges and they would hope that there might be some kind of demo in it or a game or something that they could boot up and show off. But a lot of the time they would just plug it in and turn it on, and all that would be shown was this little N64 SoundTools preview ROM. And of course, without the software connected, there's nothing happening. So now we're going to take a look at the software, and I'm not going to really dive into it too much because that would be a very lengthy video. The software is extremely in-depth. There's a lot of different menus, and there just wouldn't be enough time for me to cover everything. But today we are going to import a MIDI track, and then we're going to add a couple of different sound samples, and we're going to check it out and load that and play it on the N64 console. So let's hop over to my Windows PC and we'll load up the software. So before we actually dive into the software, you actually have to go into your PC's BIOS setting, and you have to make sure that your parallel port is set up to a specific setting. And this is required in order for the N64 SoundTools Development Cartridge, in order for it to function correctly. And you navigate down to your parallel port. And as you'll see, the mode that I have selected is EPP. And as well, we make sure that we have an I/O address setting of 378 hex, and that's the default. So we just make sure that it's set up to that, and you're good to go. Okay, so we have our Windows 98 up and running, and we're going to make this as speedy as possible, because going through all of the features of this SoundTools software would just be very, very lengthy. So we're going to have to speed it up as much as we can. So the version 3 software is what we're going to be using today, and this supports the 64DD development drive, and that's the main asset of using the version 3 software. So as you can see here, we have our N64 sequencer, and that's pretty much the main program that you use. What we're going to do today is we're going to import a MIDI track, and then we're going to add some samples to it, and then we're going to play it and run it through the N64 console, and that's all coming through the SoundTools cartridge. So now there's a couple of things. There's a sound bank that we're going to be looking at, and that has all the samples that we're going to be using as part of our MIDI track. So if we were to go in here and we went to our sample bank editor, you can see that we have no samples here. Now, because I've configured this software to support the 64DD samples, you'll see that there's this Add N64DD option here. Now this is not normally available with the base version of the software. There's a few steps you have to take in order to have this become available. But as long as you set it up properly, you'll notice that you have a whole series of additional sound samples and different instruments that you can use as part of your MIDI tracks and all the music that you're putting together and that you're composing. So it's pretty cool. Load up a sample that I've put together, and this is a MIDI track that I found online, and I've added some samples to that. And we're just going to use this preloaded version because, again, for us to go through every step of loading a MIDI track and adding samples and putting all of the different software settings, it would just be a ridiculously long tutorial video. But today it's just more of a demonstration, so that's what we're going to be looking at. But again, if you guys are interested in that and you want me to put together a very in-depth tutorial, definitely let me know in the comments, and that's something that I can potentially put together for a future video. And now here is a jazz composition file that I've set up, and this is a little MIDI track that I imported, and there were different instruments here all laid out. So I have a standard bass guitar, I have a set of drums, and as well I have a second and third bass guitar. We have a fingerstyle and a picking style bass guitar. And each of these has a specific sound sample that we're using. So now if we were to open these up, you can see all the keystrokes that we have going on our timeline. And now we've got this set up to loop from the left marker here to our right marker. And so it's just going to constantly be cycling through all of these little triggers here that we have that are going to be activating these samples that we have configured for this particular instrument of the bass guitar. And now this is a drum map. So as you can see down here, we have selected drum map as opposed to a key map, which is more of what we have when you're using like the MIDI keyboards. So now we have all of the various different sound samples that we're using for each of these percussion triggers that we have laid out on the timeline. So as you see here, we have our kick drum, and we have all the different instances here where we trigger that kick drum. We have a closed hi-hat, and we have 142, which is a percussion ride cymbal, and that's all part of this drum sequence that we have here. We'll go ahead and close that. And as well, we have two more different bass guitar sequences here. And so for this instrument, we are using a key editor. This is going to all be triggering and changing the notes and that pitch for the specific sound sample that we have selected for this instrument. So now if we were to play this track, we would have the bass guitar, the drums, a fingerstyle bass guitar, and a pick bass guitar all playing simultaneously. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to activate that. And so now if we hit play, it's going to go through an erase and a write sequence for the preview ROM and upload that into the SoundTools cartridge. And as well, it's going to upload our samples. So there we have it. Here's our little demo playing through. Now, for each of these instruments, if I mute one at a time, go to the second bass guitar. You'll see how each track is controlled individually. And then we only have the drums. And there we go. So I can re-engage these. So now, one of the cool aspects of the software is being able to go in and edit each instrument individually on the timeline. So as an example, we can mute everything but the drums. And if we go into the drum track here, and so here we have our drum map. And now if we engage the player, so we hit the 0 on the keypad, and it's going to load our preview ROM and the samples again. But then once it's playing, we have the ability to control and edit the triggers on this track. It'll upload the samples here. And now it's playing through that track. So now as it's looping through for this instrument, we can go in and manipulate some of the different samples and the triggers that are on the timeline here. So now if I select to place a snare drum, say at different locations on the timeline, you can see it's just going to mess everything up. And of course, like, I'm not a musician here conducting all this stuff here, but you get the point. And we can go in and remove. And now we should be back to normal. There you go. Anyhow, so you get the point. So that's pretty cool aspect of it. And the same applies to all the other instruments. All the different options we have for placing notes, different lengths, and as well as using the eraser tool to remove them. So it's kind of cool. Now again, there's so many different options that we could go in and investigate, and I could demo, but it would just be too lengthy of a video. But again, it's just a cool little piece of development equipment that I wanted to demo for you guys and just show you the basic functionality. So it's a pretty cool little development unit. All right, so that's it, guys. That concludes the video. I've been meaning to do this demo for you guys for quite some time, so that was awesome to be able to put that together and finally demo the N64 SoundTools Development Cartridge. Pretty awesome, pretty cool little unit. So that wraps the video today, guys. I want to give a huge shout out, as always, to my supporters. You guys are amazing, and I am so grateful that you guys are helping me out and allowing me to put this awesome content together for everybody to come and check out. And there's lots more coming. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hit the like and subscribe if you can. It's always appreciated. And we will see you guys in the next video. So take it easy, and bye for now. Are you guys still here?